Is anyone there? Is it just me? Okay. Assume we're starting again.
No, I'm here. I was just letting everybody on. I think we have you and Monty on. Can we hear you, Monty?
Hello,
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 awesome.
Monty.
how's it going?
And now we have Rob just requesting. Perfect. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Thanks for jumping in here early. For those of you who have, we have a great space for you today. Going to be talking with Paul and Rob Whitehead from M Squared, and also Monty from M Squared as well. We have a lot coming up together, but I'll let the speakers introduce themselves and we can get started.
So I go first. So hey folks, my name is Paul. I'm the founder of Somnia. So I basically do all the things. Founder-based marketing, founder-based BD, founder-based engineering, do all the things.
Thanks, Paul. Hello. How's everyone doing? Am I alive? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we
We
can.
good?
Yeah,
Sweet. So I'm Rob. So I'm the CEO of M Squared, which is a virtual world technology company. You might know we're sort of the underlying tech that powers Yuga Labs Other Side and a few other projects. And yeah, I spend my days coding way more than I should be, because I should be out helping to sell like Paul, but that's my vibe. Monty.
yeah, yeah. So I'm Monty. I'm a software engineer at M Squared. It's a bit weird to have software engineers and these kind of things, but I love this stuff. It's really cool to see all the community and see what everyone's building. It's great. I really hope that we can build some cool stuff together.
We do need real engineers still, Monty, with vibe coding. We still need you.
Well, almost. We'll see. But yeah, for now.
Yeah, and so we recently announced, we made a really cool announcement that M Squared will, or Somnia will be the official blockchain home for M Squared. Do y'all want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I can try to tell the story from my end, and maybe Paul can chip in terms of on the Somnia side. We since like 22 when we first started really going public with M Squared, the dream was always to have like a decentralized virtual world play. And we thought that we were going to be using the blockchain to put way more of the metaverse on chain. So not just ownership, but the logic of objects, moderation systems, like all the things that would make Roblox Roblox, but putting them all in a decentralized environment so that they're not owned by anybody. There's protocols people can build on. And we just couldn't find a blockchain that was fast enough to be able to do that. And we were looking around and it was kind of a bit depressing. Like people were saying they were making these decentralized metaverses when it's just a Web 2 world with some NFTs. And that's not really to me what Web 3 is about. Web 3 is about people being able to build on top of each other's stuff. It's about open protocols. So when sort of we started collaborating more deeply with Somnia, it was this like light bulb moment where finally we had the performance where we could sort of go insane and just put literally everything on the blockchain, even things that you wouldn't have thought was possible, things like movement of players is now the type of thing you can justifiably put on blockchains as well.
Yeah, so from my side, so if people aren't aware, I used to actually work at Improbable, which kind of is very linked to M Squared. And the reason why we kicked off Somnia was trying to solve the problems that Rob was talking about. Is about like tens of thousands of people gathering in digital spaces and all interacting on chain in real time. And that's why we kind of incepted and created the project to solve this problem. But when we built it, it kind of goes beyond that. So it can solve problems in the metaverse with the stuff that Rob was talking about. It can solve problems in gaming. So you can now put games fully on chain. You can put all their logic and data on chain. You can create composable applications on top of that. So you could say have like a prediction market that's gambling on top of those games, saying, I reckon I'm going to get a headshot in the next 10 minutes. We're doing things in DeFi, so we're going to have on-chain limit order books, kind of like Hyperliquid style applications. We're putting those fully on chain. So really, what we're building is an ecosystem of apps just like M Squared that can only really be built on Somnia with the super high performance characteristics that they need basically.
And yeah, on our end, we're starting to, a lot of the stuff that we built, we were building before Somnia was really around. So we're starting to go through layers of our technology and kind of rebase them onto Somnia. Just as a kind of simple example, is we had a kind of Web 2 inventory system for a lot of our projects to like manage balances of things when it was too slow to use a blockchain. We're now just going full send, everything's on chain. and the default chain for those sorts of things is going to be Somnia. And also all the events in the world, whenever anyone logs in or logs out or interacts, they're all events on chain that people can then hook into and build their own applications on top of.
Yeah, I think, Rob, it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on where you see UGC coming. Because for me, one of the things that I think is going to be really cool is enabling UGC to be created and then monetized and used across these applications. I don't know whether you guys have any thoughts there on kind of what you're doing there.
Yeah, I think that's something we're super bullish on UGC, especially with all these kind of like vibe coding AI tools working their way around. Um, our vision is that people can build, an asset, an item, an avatar once. They can, mint it as an NFT, and you're not just minting it for like Sandbox or for Decentraland or for a specific metaverse. These are like actually cross metaversal objects that can show up in different places. And the dream is that these things aren't just like static items. They're fully interactive. So you can imagine buying an actual Pokemon, which is fully got on-chain logic in terms of, its emotions and its behavior and what it can do. And then having that be something that you can spawn in all sorts of different places. So yeah, we're really excited to see that stuff get pushed forward. But to do that, you needed a blockchain that had the performance where you could run all that kind of logic in a scalable way.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about that, Paul, about how kind of Somnia is uniquely positioned to fill this kind of role to make both of our visions come true?
Yeah, sure. So I think the TLDR here is Somnia is aiming to be the world's fastest EVM compatible blockchain. So we can do 1 million transactions per second. I think the way I would translate that to what Rob is talking about is really what we enable is a load of on-chain compute. So the number I kind of put out in a tweet earlier this week is 50 gigagas a second. That, for context, Ethereum does 2.5 megagas. So it's not even really a comparable number. So you're really talking about so much more on-chain compute that you can do, which is really going to help enable the kind of stuff Rob was talking about to kind of take the logic of these objects and make them interoperable because you can put them on chain. The other thing is obviously the latency characteristics of Somnia. So block times are 100 milliseconds, end-to-end client latency is sub-second. So you're really going to enable these real-time applications to be talking to the chain and interacting with the chain. And you as a user can click stuff and it can do stuff on chain, but it will feel like near instantaneous, which is really important for these real-time applications like metaverses. The other part is obviously cost. So we're aiming to put gas fees to ridiculously cheap levels. In the current modeling, I can't release too many numbers, but it's going to be at least an order of magnitude, if not 2 orders of magnitude, more than any chain out there today, really focusing on computation being super cheap. And that's going to actually make the stuff that Rob's talking about cost viable. If you try to do this on any blockchain today, you just would spend thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars if you did not need. For us, we're really aiming to enable these applications from a cost perspective. So I think basically those are the 3 major things I'd talk about.
It's been quite crazy. I don't want to like give spoilers for some of the stuff I've been looking at, but I was even almost as a joke to start with, was experimenting with trying to put like Flappy Bird fully on chain, where even the physics of you moving and colliding with the pipes is all like written in smart contracts. And the entire thing in the end was a 30 updates per second simulation, like just stupid amounts of computation happening compared to what a normal blockchain could do. But Somnia just don't care. It's just like an actual computer you can program with, which has like super high performance. So yeah, we keep on getting blown away with what we can go and do with it. And a lot of our work with them squared, we've got one track is building services that make it easier to use Somnia and easier for game studios to use Somnia for their stuff, even if they don't know about Web3. But then the other one is we're sort of researching what new things are now possible on chain, which never used to be on chain, and what are the possibilities of that.
Yeah, I think this is a massive point that kind of Rob just alluded to. So you now have this basically platform that can do this amazing amount of compute on chain. It can have real-time characteristics. It's super low cost. I think the next stage for us is really thinking more about the tooling and ways people can code with that chain to make that much easier for a much broader set of developers to come on board and utilize that. Really, for me, for Web3 to scale, we need to bring in Web2 devs and we need to bring in Web2 consumers. And I think that's going to be a really interesting next stage for us, how we kind of up that tooling to enable these real-time applications. We'll probably be talking about that in the rest of this talk, but there's some really cool stuff we're cooking behind the scenes there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's like we're already starting to do a bit of spoilers for the next section, but what really was sort of a bit depressing but kind of understandable was Somnia, when we were programming against it, it's so fast and so low latency. It's all the other pieces haven't caught up yet. So it's like when you're actually using your kind of in-browser wallet, the UX of that, it waits a second before it
MetaMask
pops
is
up.
so slow, so slow.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like and but like when you have and like when you have like 10-second block times, it doesn't matter. But like when you're genuinely trying to interact in real time, even waiting for it to pop up, 10, 20 blocks have already like happened. So that's been really surprising for us. Where we don't this has happened in the past for us is when you make one part of the system extremely fast. Turns out you got to go back through everything else and make that catch up as well. So there's been a bit of that we've been experimenting with, and some of the stuff Monty's been cooking is very related to that. I think it was in the
Yeah,
final rant piece. I'm sorry, I'm getting excited. Is sometimes in compute in just like, the industry of technology, Paul's saying that this thing is 10 to 100 times higher performance and like sort of more gas efficient. If you think about like computer chips as they got better, when computer chips go for being like 10 or 100 times faster, they can start to do things that like no one ever thought possible. So the idea that a computer could render graphics and have beautiful stuff that required computers that were thousands of times faster. And I think Somnia, we need to be learning and discovering what new things are now possible that no one ever thought about. Sorry, Paul.
no, I think that for me is the most exciting thing for this year. It's kind of asking devs, what can you build now that you couldn't build before due to blockchain limitations? It's the thing I'm most excited about with M squared and the stuff you guys are doing in the metaverse and how you're going to push that envelope. People in the gaming sector, people in the DeFi sector, people in the AI sector. I think I'm just so excited to see all the new apps that couldn't be built before. It's going to be cool.
Yeah, we do hackathons every couple of months, and we did a Somnia themed one last month, and it was just sort of funny to see the sorts of things people were making. Like someone made a fully on-chain Twitch type of clone where you could like send bits and you could chat. I was like, wait, that makes no sense to on the blockchain. And then you're like, wait, it just works. And then you do the costing for it, and you're like, oh wait, it's actually cost effective to do this as well. So yeah, it's crazy.
Amazing. So I think on the tooling discussion, there have been some innovations recently that you have to announce. Is that correct?
There are, and I think this is probably a good opportunity to pass the baton a bit to Monty, I guess, before I pass over there. To reiterate the point, we're trying to build these real-time applications. We were trying to treat, the blockchain less and less like a thing that you do transactions with, almost like interacting with your bank, and thinking about it more and more as like a real-time database where you could be streaming data as if it was a game server, like you're playing a video game, or as if it was like a database you're streaming data from, almost like a chat app. And we looked at the existing things out there for those who are devs, things like VM, things like Web3.js, and they just didn't have the performance, and they just weren't tuned for this type of use case. So it's probably a good intro to get Monty going and chatting. And everyone should follow Monty on Twitter because he's great.
He's got some spicy posts. I've seen him.
Monty's going to have some celebs swag engineering energy now. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been some great information shared here about the sort of exactly why we need to look at doing sort of a lot of the infrastructure work, because it's always bad to start from the infrastructure. You want to be like, okay, well, what do you want to build that's valuable for people? And it's why when we have such an interesting new blockchain that can enable such a large new scale, as Rob was saying, we want to see the kinds of new paradigms of things that can be done. And so that's why that's what we've been thinking about in M squared, about like, what can we start to do now that we couldn't do before. And you can look at the basics of things like just doing sending money, but then you could even look at doing what does it look like to have your entire account for your games on chain. And obviously you can push into also what we're saying is that movement, but it's all these things you start to collapse when you have to use the bounded systems of VM or using MetaMask. All these things, these really limit you. So we've been sort of doing sort of practical driven experiences where we build demos. We might build some really cool sort of things you might have seen on Rob's Twitter about some even just blocks running around in a world, or or Flappy Bird, stuff like that. And that really helps to understand, these are the kinds of things that people might want to build, and what kind of things do you have to do to make that work. And it turns out there's so many things that just fall apart. And a great example is signing transactions. If you want to be saying to people, I'm doing all these things on the chain in real time, which is what happens in games, you have to send transactions pretty fast. And we're saying at least several transactions a second, which is far too fast for any infrastructure right now to handle. So even just there, we have to have some idea of, okay, well, we want to have new infrastructure that enables the signing. But we also are thinking about, well, if we're going to have all these accounts that are always updating frequently, a position's a great one. How do you even know who's moving where? So you have to have a good subscription system. And as Rob was saying, you kind of move away from just sending money to a real-time database that needs really good subscription systems, needs basically a game engine sort of system. And there are existing game engine infrastructures that exist on chain, and things like Mud that have been used to make really cool games and experiences. But we found that these things are pretty limited in that they're not built for these fast chains still. They're still massive. They're huge pieces of code that are quite hard and unwieldy to sort of get around. But also, they're not open in Web3. Like, you can't start to discover and explore the information there, because one of the other things we've seen about blockchains is that it's because the data's everywhere. It means that everybody can start to subscribe to that. It's a sort of a huge pool of information that it's another part of the paradigm that it's very, very hard to know what might be sort of possible in that space. So we'd love to sort of help enable that. So we want to make some infrastructure that enables this fast transaction signing, enables the really good reading from the blockchain, like sort of position updates or account changes, like inventory stuff like that. But also making sure that other people can see that stuff. Other people can make viewers for that, or make marketplaces and stuff like that, because that's where you start to have some of the best potential content being made. We've seen this with games, with mods. Having mods in games that have made so many incredible games, like Dota, have Counter-Strike have come out of mods on games. So I think it's very valuable to have sort of API structures for this stuff. So that's why we're going sort of from the development side. So that's why we made Etherbase. The Etherbase is sort of like a prototype open source implementation of how do you do the fast signing, how do you do the fast listening to state, and we're all driving that through demos. So there's a really good demo of how do you, if you wanted to do, let's say, running around in a game all on blockchain, you first have to be able to send, let's say, 20 to 30 updates a second. To do that, you need to have a blockchain that can sign. You need to have a backend that can sign 20 to 30 transactions per user. And let's say you have 100 users in your game, that's suddenly like thousands and thousands of transactions per second. And that's why what we chose is at the moment is sort of Golang as a sort of good and interesting backend. We try to use things like TypeScript and Node and VM and stuff like that. They're far too slow. They're not written for doing that kind of scale. So and it's describing it's the same kind of thing. We need really sort of slick, easy to use systems. So we built a React front end for that, so that you can really easily sort of just use React hooks to say, I want to subscribe to this data or subscribe to these events. And sort of the basic level of where we've gone with this. We're looking at so many other places to make it super easy, because ideally, as Paul was saying, the way you scale this is you get Web2 people involved, because they're the people that if you can prove to people that Web3 is actually valuable for real reasons, the Web2 people will buy into it. And at the moment, a lot of it's still just banking. So
I think that's a really, really good point to go on, Monty. So the first one is to explain the name. So I guess I don't know if anyone in the audience is aware of something called Firebase or Superbase or any of those sorts of things. Maybe someone is, but these are the types of database that a lot of Web2 developers use to build things like chat apps, real-time apps, collaboration, things like Notion and those sorts of things you build with these types of database. And we were using these things as the inspiration for Etherbase and the APIs, not any of the Web3 ecosystem on purpose. We're trying to make an API which is more kind of like typical of a Web2 system. And it handles things like not just things like transaction signing and some of those complexities, but also schema. So rather than having to do ABI encoding, which is when you take your data and you crunch it into the numbers and like bytes that represent transactions on blockchains, you just use JSON, which is the kind of object format which most Web2 devs use for everything. So this thing has APIs that look like a normal database. You interact with it using JSON, which is like how every other Web2 system works. And the result is something that's really simple to go and use. And you can have someone who's never written a smart contract in their life, never interacted with a blockchain in their life, building real-time applications, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see, especially with our sort of ETH Denver, but also the internal sort of hackathon stuff we've done, to see the kinds of stuff people can do with that. Interesting to see sort of also the feedback there, because we want to make it super usable to everybody. You know, the Web2 people and the Web3 people. We want to have the optionality to say, if you don't care about any of it, you just want to use the blockchain for sort of what makes sense, then you can do that. But also, if you want the super high security, you want all these core fundamentals of Web3, we also want to enable that, because you know I think that's where the best future is where everyone comes together to make great stuff. But we also have like a really sort of interesting other angle to this sort of work is, how do you make sure that these things are useful to lots of other people? So that's why we're also making sure that these schemas are available to other people, looking at sort of interesting ways to do protocols so other people can sort of see all the data that's currently available, because technically, yes, all the data is available on blockchains, but it's all just sort of bytes in a huge amount of data that nobody knows about. So it's also super valuable for us to think of ways to make sure that this data is explorable and discoverable, so everybody can say, oh, this is like a really interesting thing to listen to. And there's sort of, you can lean into sort of even more interesting things on how to, maybe you can reward people on sort of providing interesting data.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting thought. Right now, you know, the only data that people really look at on chain is things like ownership of, like, you know, fungible and non-fungible tokens. And one of the things we've been playing around with is this idea of like the event economy. So what if for every application on chain, if you pushed it all on chain, let's say I'm making a shooter game, and every time there's a headshot, that's a transaction that's on chain, that now allows other people to hook into that and extend that with their own logic. So maybe I'm making my own betting app that lets people bet on, you know, different outcomes in the game, and I'm hooking into those events happening, and I'm building my own stuff on top. And you really need to have like the capability for huge amounts of transaction volume to make sense there. And I guess this segues a bit to some of the reactivity stuff of Somnia, which Paul can talk about, but maybe that's for another day.
Yeah, I think the fee market stuff is something that we're currently playing around with. So just so people understand this, what you will be able to do is essentially post events and data on chain, and then based on other people listening to that and reacting to that, you would get paid out. This creates a whole new set of economics and mechanics for people. So the example that Rob gave, it means that game developers can start putting the metadata of their game and the events of their game on chain, and then people can make companion apps like a betting app or like a fantasy league or maybe just an inventory viewer, and then the original game developer can get paid for those events, which I think is really interesting as a business model, because you're essentially creating, the more valuable your data is to listen to, the more money you could potentially make from the system. That needs a lot of modeling still and working out, but that's something that's kind of in the roadmap and something that we're cooking behind the scenes, which I'm really interested in, because it just creates a whole new way to monetize something, and that's what I think blockchain's been really good at, and I'm very interested in this space. Do we want to talk through Etherbase in action? Do we want to get to the next topic? I think probably makes sense, right?
Let's go.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So we took Etherbase, for people's context, it's kind of been a bit behind closed scenes. We're going to be talking about a lot more. We took it to ETH Denver and kind of started to put it in front of devs there for the first time. I think I would say it was really refreshing for me to see people picking it up pretty quickly and using it to build apps. My favorite one was this kind of shooter. So it's this first person shooter where essentially each bullet was a transaction. And then based on the kind of outcome of the match, you could then pick up all of your opponent's bullets. And obviously, because those bullets are essentially transactions, they can be traded for reward money. So you're kind of going into these matches almost like betting that you would beat the other player with the fewest bullets possible, and then you could take money out of it. It's kind of like poker, where you had like stakes and you were kind of one-on-oneing people using Etherbase. And I thought it was just a really cool application that kind of brings together kind of the monetization aspects of crypto and then the real-time blockchain elements of Somnia and Etherbase. And so I thought it was really cool. Monty, I don't know whether you were there a lot longer than I was.
No. So I worked with them as well. It was really interesting to see sort of the stuff people were making, and I think that the thing that it was sort of showed to me is that even right now at the beginning of this, there's so many interesting ideas people have that people have been able to leverage. Leaning into that performance, because I think sometimes it's hard to know that is that performance needed to be are people actually going to use it in any meaningful way. But I think that we've seen that people really do lean into that, especially if you show them some basic examples. Or actually, it's really easy to do that, especially if the tooling allows for that. We've seen that people really do lean into actually you can start to do a lot of really interesting data on chain, and I think it's just I really want to see and have more opportunities for everyone to start building things, because it is really easy. It was so easy for people to build stuff. It was, and it's only going to get easier really, because it's all still prototype stuff. But it was really really cool to see that, and I really hope that we can get more experiences to help everyone out.
I think the funniest thing for me was just watching developers' face when you demo it, and they see like the transactions and the chain reacting, and they just be like, "What is this?" It seems so foreign for blockchain devs to see anything like this. What is going on here?
It's funny. You're so right, because you'll see that stuff in like logs in Etherscan, but it's when you see it in that Ether-based website, kind of like trickling in as people are updating, it just hits different. Yeah. And you can see all the data. It's all like it's not like packed into bytes, which you have to decipher. It's just like JSON data, which you can understand dead easy.
Yeah, I think obviously there's been a few people in our community playing around with it. I think the most prolific one has been Director Creator DC. People have probably seen some of the stuff he's been posting. He made this app. It's really simple. Like all it is a player running around, and then this duck, which is an on-chain duck, follows you around and updates the position fully on-chain. But that obviously spews out a lot of transactions. And he made like this massively multiplayer version with like a few hundred of them going at the same time. And he generated so many transactions. I think he generated like 40 million transactions in a 24-hour period, which was like the record for an EVM chain. And it is a tech demo, but it kind of shows the possibilities and capabilities of what this technology can do, even if it's still the Ether-based stuff is still at the kind of prototype phase. You can still do some absolutely crazy stuff, and we're making it better like every single day. So seeing that was also a really cool moment for us in the team, and I'm sure for you guys as well, seeing Ether-based being pushed to like the max.
Yeah, it was really really great to work with Easy on that. That sort of trying to push for that kind of testing. It's something that as the developer for Etherbase, it's been really cool to even see it at this early stage. Just the actual scale you can start to reach far beyond actually anything anyone's ever done with EVM blockchains, which is really really cool to see. And this is really just the beginning. It's still there's lots of things to iron out, but it is great. And I think obviously it's some random demo that's been put together that it probably doesn't represent real use, but I think that a lot of those demos really start to open people's eyes to the kinds of potential you can do. And that's what we've been leaning into a lot is maybe these things aren't exactly how you would do them for real, but it's about pushing and trying to see what works and what doesn't, because that's ultimately what we want to enable. Not everything's going to work, but that's why you need to let people try and really just start to see what you can do, because for far too long, EVM sort of blockchains have limited people completely by just the limitations on the blockchain. But now it's going to be just limitations on what makes sense and what's reasonable for companies and finance. I think that's where we want to get to, rather than just pure technical limitations. So it's going to be great to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I still meet people all the time that tell me the EVM is slow, and I kind of sit there and I'm like,
oh, we even have.
Sorry, Rob, what were you saying?
Okay, but you don't go ahead, Paul. So yeah.
So I always kind of the EVM, for people just so they understand how it works, it's basically a set of bytecode standards. So you code in Solidity or Viper, that turns into bytecodes that is then interpreted by a blockchain. So the EVM is just essentially a programming paradigm in a virtual machine, and there's nothing slow inherently about it. It's the blockchain below, the database layer, the execution layer, the consensus layer, the networking layer that is slow. And so there's this like mythos in Web3 that the EVM is slow, and I hope that our team, people like Mega Reef, people like Monad, are kind of proving that the EVM is not slow. It's just the blockchains that have been running it so far have been too slow.
I think, at risk of going on Spice Train, I think that is a narrative which is being pushed by non-EVM chains to excuse the fact that they aren't using the biggest open standard around. And it's because it's a harder thing to do. It was fucking hard, seeing, I guess, like from the stuff, seeing how your team's been doing a poll. It seems getting the EVM to be as fast as you've made it, but doing that means you can lift and shift the entire decade's worth of developer tooling and ecosystem rather than trying to have to peddle a new programming language. Which, for those of you who know about tech, is like the most mental thing you can do, is try and push people to use a new programming language and a new ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to do this before. Rob will know, one of our first products, we tried to get the games industry to adopt a new way of coding multiplayer games, massively multiplayer games, MMOs. We used a language called Scala, which no one in the games industry has ever heard of. We made them program in what's called an agent paradigm. And I remember going to Ubisoft and kind of showing them this tech that we were so proud of, and literally the engineers laughed at me. And it kind of really made me realize and learn a lesson that you need to go where the developers are, and you need to take all of the years of tooling and investment in infrastructure and kind of bring that forward rather than trying to rebel against it and do your own thing. It's so hard, it's so expensive, and it's almost destined to fail. So yeah, I think we had to do it that way, in my view. So do we have a demo? Is that right? I don't know. I'm just looking at a script. Is there a demo?
Yeah, there is a demo. Hopefully it works. We'll see.
We're actually going to do a live demo on the Twitter Spaces.
Can everyone
this is
please pray to the demo gods? Please pray to the demo gods that our demo may be beautiful and work.
Oh my god, I've never seen anyone do this in Web3.
Okay, I can post the link. I don't know if somebody has the link. They might do.
John, do you have the link?
Yes. I think it's the one that you posted earlier.
Yeah, it's the gunpowder.
Okay. So let's see.
And then
where can we post this?
Yeah, hopefully it works. I vibe coded this all this morning today, so hopefully it works. But otherwise, I blame Claude.
Hold on just a minute here. Yeah, I found the link. Just where do you want me to post it?
Well, maybe put it in the replies on the Twitter Spaces.
Yeah, I'll do it like that. Just taking me a minute to do it from the phone here.
And I have not scale tested it, so we'll see.
I bet you the front end breaks. It's always the Web 2 part.
Always, yeah, true. It always is. Absolutely.
All right, so I'm posting it in the comments for the space.
All right, how do we get it to the top though? Can you pin it? Is that thing?
I'm not sure. Let me see. I just made the post. Should be out there now. Can you see it? Give us some emojis if you can see it. Any luck?
Where is it?
Should be in the comments of the space here.
Oh, you have to change it to most recent replies. Got it.
Ah, okay.
Because it is most relevant rather than most recent.
Yeah, so if everybody could give that a like too, that'll probably send it up to the top.
So what's going on right now? Why are there so many colors?
Yeah, so basically there's the way this works is I think there are some bugs still, but it's fine. Basically, the way this works is whenever someone clicks on the screen, it's going to be some of our sort of some of the technology we've done with Etherbase, as well as some sort of authentication systems with Privy to go and send a transaction saying that you've sent a firework at this sort of location on the screen. and it's going to go through Somnia. It's going to authenticate your transaction. It's going to go and hit one of the contracts that we have that I just wrote today, and that contract says that you've emitted this firework at this position at this time for this player, and when you do that, then what happens is we also are using Etherbase. We subscribe to all of those events. So whenever those events of new fireworks are sent to the chain, we receive that, and then we just show them on the screen, and then we do some nice counters and some nice sort of basic leaderboard systems. And the Web 2 side is a little bit slow, but the Web 3 side should hold up. And you can sort of see the total firework counter just sort of going up whenever people click around and stuff, and it's already faster than what Ethereum can handle. So yeah.
So
cool.
every time I'm seeing a firework, that's the one having tapped.
Exactly, yeah. Someone tapping somewhere in the world, and is in the bottom bar with it is moving too quickly, I think, for it to catch up. Sometimes you can see the list of fireworks at the bottom list, but it seems to be going too quickly for the UI to handle. So definitely some Web 2 work to do, for sure.
It's always the Web 2 stuff. It's always the Web 2 stuff.
Yeah. But no, it's really cool. And it's one of the best things about this is that it's super easy to get it to work, and it's super easy to give docs to AI to say, okay, use these React hooks and just write this sort of this front end. Obviously, there's still stuff we can do to help with performance, but that's something we want to help with, is sort of give guidance on how to make these kind of performant applications, because at the moment nothing in Web3 is performant. So every single thing falls over when you try to do these kinds of things, but it does seem to work, which is good. I'm glad that Light Demo kind of worked.
So just so I understand, is every time a firework is blasting, that is a transaction on the blockchain?
Exactly, yeah.
It's like verifiable, traceable.
Yep, exactly, yeah. So you could even, I can share sort of the where the for the firework contract, and then you could really easily go and see all the different events that have been emitted. And it also means you could play it back. You can see all the history, and all of the leaderboard systems with all the accounts are done through a contract. So there's no sort of Web 2 info tool, which is actually also something I really like. It's quite painful to have to set up all of the Web 2 databases and account for all of the systems. But having a nice Web 3 one that just we have to do is handle the deploying infra. But we've developed some systems that make it super easy to do that. So it's been really easy to make.
I'm just watching the transactions coming through on the right. It's just mental. It's just so many.
Yeah, and if people go to, if you want to go, you can go to the Shannon or to the testnet Explorer, and you'll see the transaction number probably higher than it normally is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing at the moment it's like 6,000 have come in the last second.
I think this is such a great demo where, like, you want to explain to someone what Somnia is all about and what Etherbase is all about. You just send them this link on your phone, and then you're sitting next to them, two people, and you just start tapping the fireworks, and you can see it instantly get synchronized. I think that's such a lovely demo.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's such a basic thing, but it's a good example of the kinds of sort of what you can start to do, and that's why we want to start to look at sort of definitely more interesting demos, things that start to show the kinds of real potential you can have. Because obviously this is really cool, but there's also, this is really just scratching the surface of the kinds of sort of dynamicness, but also the speed that you can get to, because this is manual tapping. You could really easily turn this into a kind of cookie clicker system or into a more sort of like real-time game.
Yeah, so just so I understand, is my wallet signing the transactions from Privy, or are you signing it on the back end with like some bulk signing thing? How's that working?
Yeah. So the way this works is it depends on the kind of security you want. So we have at the moment by default everyone logs in as a guest user, and so we give them a wallet through Privy, and that's through like a fully like non-custodial system. So when we do that, we are initiating a session, and so sessions are sort of private constraints on what you allow the backend to do for you, because obviously there's limits on this, and we want to enable very, very secure applications to do this all super fast signing locally. But if you want to do a lot of stuff, you need some good backends. But using sort of well-known sort of authorized executors and authorized systems, we've implemented a basic sort of prototype system for allowing, saying, okay, I'm going to allow the backend to sign this many transactions on this, this contract with this method, and that means you're sort of limited by that. And it also means that we can start to do quite valuable sort of gas sort of optimizations, so that people don't actually have to pay for this kind of stuff. In the same way, a game works is that if you play a game, you don't pay for every single thing that you do. So it's that's something that the owner of the game can handle. So thing we also want to look at is making it super easy to play these games rather than having to set up all these different things. And I've wanted to. There are a few games now that are out that are quite interesting, but the amount of complexity you have to get in to set up your account, set up the money and everything to get in is so painful that it stopped basically anybody from actually playing the game. And we want
I remember we were trying to play some of the kind of on-chain Minecraft stuff on Redstone, and no one in the team could do it because no one knew how to bridge to get Redstone, and it's that's the stuff that has to get fixed. It's fine if it's just Web3 tech demos, but if you imagine now, even just with this really simple Firework app, imagine if all of us had to link our wallets directly to start playing it, or we had to bridge gas to another chain to be able to make fireworks. I bet you 100 times less people would have interacted with that app. It's just genuinely that hard if you have to go do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and obviously you don't want to always have guest accounts for everything. It doesn't really work with the kinds of actual state management you want. So that's why this proves a great option, because it allows you to then upgrade your accounts to if you have a wallet, or if you have Twitter or Gmail, you can use those, and it's still non-custodial, and you can still sort of own who you are, but it means it's super easy to still use you can still use the session systems. But it means that if you want to use your own wallet for everything, you can. And the actual address that you'll see at the bottom, if you were to sign in with MetaMask or anything, the wallet number, the wallet address you'll see is the actual wallet you have, because because we have actual cryptographic guarantees on who you are with the way sessions work, because they're all to track. There's no Web2 infrastructure here that you're relying on. So it means that we can guarantee that if you're clicking that, then we know that that's definitely you, and that you've said that you're happy to do this. But we're really invested in making sure that not only can we make this fast infrastructure, but that it's still secure. It still upholds to what Web3 people care about, because it's definitely you could very easily just do Web2, but that's something we don't want to do. We want to make sure we still have those guarantees that everybody really likes.
Super cool. Probably the Block Explorer has blown up. The Block Explorer always blows up when we go above a few hundred TPS. It's so upsetting. Need to fix that. All right. What's the next question, John? What are we doing? Are we getting people to ask some questions? What's next?
Yeah, so basically we went through Etherbase, we've went through all of the applications and everything, and yeah, we could open it up for some questions if nobody else has anything to add.
Do we have some teasers about stuff that's coming up? We must be doing something like that, right?
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do a bit of a little teaser one. So yeah, I mean, the thing that Monty posted, this little fireworks demo, is the first of a bunch of kind of micro game like things we want to start shipping on Somnia. We're using this stuff as a proving ground for M Squared to figure out what the right tools and technologies are. Often in the Web3 space, and we used to do this years ago, is you invent technology and you're not actually using the technology yourself and proving it's useful and proving it solves problems. So the way we're doing it is we're going to be shipping a bunch of different micro games, and with every single one, we're going to be using it to prove out the underlying technology of Etherbase and our services making sense. So one coming up, I need to say, my legal team has told me that we are not making Minecraft on the blockchain. However, we will be making a Minecraft flavored experience, a voxel flavored experience, where it may not have the same taste of Minecraft, but it may smell and look similar. So yeah, we're going to be making a voxel. I think I did a good job. I think we're not going to get sued.
We're drawing inspiration from an iconic voxel open world builder.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So yeah, half the taste. all on chain. And yeah, so we're playing around with on chain voxel worlds. So trying to get things like a Minecraft-like world and putting it 100% on chain. So all the blocks are on chain, all the mining's on chain, and that opens some really fun stuff where you can have like full on-chain economies for people constructing things and mining things and crafting things. So yeah, it's gonna be very fun.
So you'll actually be able to mine blocks on the blockchain, which is like that.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of workshopping some of the names. I don't know if we want to actually get feedback on the names on this call.
Go for it. They'll probably give you a little comments.
Yeah, I don't know, Monty, do you want to? I think you've been coming up with some of the
Yeah,
names.
it was well.
Hit us.
I think I don't mind block or block chunk. They're not bad names. But if
I like block.
block's not bad. But if anyone has any sort of great ideas, we'll I don't know, we'll send you some STT or something, something. Having a cool name. Yeah, no, I think it's really looking forward to sort of building that out and seeing the kinds of cool sort of infrastructure that's needed to allow for this to be built. And I think once you've built that infrastructure with that great demo, it means that you can make so many other things at that kind of scale. And I think that the legally inspired voxel open world builder is a really great example of the kinds of, there's so much you can potentially do with that. You could just stick to just building blocks, but then you could also go and do movement, and you could do, I even thought, could you do things like redstone? What does that look like if you start to put that logic on chain? Which is, there's so many.
Oh,
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And then you could also take it from like experience to experience because you have it all fully on chain.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is
And then
it's one of the things that
we can do. Implement an ERC20 contract in Redstone.
Yeah. There's just so many cool things.
Yeah, you guys have made me realize that what will happen is people will make constructs that make it just much easier for people to build stuff on chain. Like that redstone thing is a really interesting idea, where now you have loads of people that can essentially create logic and code on chain through Minecraft redstone. And I think that's just a really interesting idea that we're going to add like these layers that just add abstractions so more people can build on chain in a decentralized open manner. I think it's going to be super cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Very interesting.
So when's it coming out? Are we getting any dates or no leaks? No leaks soon.
I would love to say, but
I don't know. Remember, yeah, Monty, you can say. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Then as a software engineer, I don't like deadlines. But
I think we're trying to get something kind of like end of the month.
Yeah.
Early April is probably like a good time when we're going to get something live to start the show.
Yeah.
Nice. So everyone can enjoy fully on-chain voxel-inspired world builder. Nice, like it.
Yes, and
definitely
so we're
not Minecraft.
Definitely not Minecraft. It's gonna be great. But I think as well, like if you think of like a voxel world like that, where you're running around, you're placing things, you're mining things, you're interacting with other people, you're seeing other people. It's not just kind of making a voxel world. It's the beginnings of sort of an on-chain game engine like thing. Because if you have that, then you can add inventory, and then you can add spawnable objects, and then it starts to get very like, it starts to become something which you can sort of extend from as well.
Very interesting, and AI as well. We can react to stuff. Very interesting.
Oh yeah, I mean don't get us started on AI. Like I mean, the whole thing, right? Is like an AI could have equally be playing the firework game because the interface is all on chain, and the data is fully on chain. And with Ether-based, the AI can query the schema. You could easily have an AI interact with that as well.
Oh, what a fun world. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very cool.
And you could have a lot of simultaneous players in the same space as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, we can make like the RuneScape grand exchange-like situations, but all on-chain. So everyone can be trading their NFTs in person.
Yeah, we haven't really spoken a lot about the M squared tech. I think that's because people in the community probably don't know this, so we'll probably do some pieces around this. What they've made is like an incredible piece of technology, which allows you to get thousands of people in the same space at the same time digitally. Everyone can see each other. Everyone can interact in real time. This is all accessible from any device. You don't need a gaming PC. You just use cloud streaming. And it's an incredible piece of technology that creates these new social experiences that could never be seen before. And obviously they're moving that on chain, and I think it's going to be so cool and so awesome to see. So that is powering the Minecraft experience, right? Or are you guys doing that a bit differently?
And we're doing it a little bit differently, actually. I think for Minecraft, all of the position updates are going to be fully on chain.
Oh, interesting.
Because I
Spicy.
think what we're trying to do, right, is sometimes when you're trying out new technology, you just have to do stupid shit. You got to do things that don't sound like they make sense, because sometimes that's how you get a breakthrough. So when we're playing around with Etherbase, we're just asking ourselves, why not? It's like chat, why not put it on the blockchain? Position updates, why not put it on the blockchain? And maybe we will find out that it's a stupid idea, but at least you know now, because rather than kind of having your own assumptions, I've just found every time you try and have assumptions and you have your own conceptions about what makes sense and doesn't, you really need to just test it. You really need to just like actually get data and find out if it works.
Yeah, very cool. All right, should we open up for questions, John?
Yeah, we can do that. I have a few requests. I'm not sure if they just kind of auto-requested or if they actually had a question, but I will let Kuzan and Bobby Smile up, see if they have anything to add. If not, I did see some questions in the comments, but the main one I saw that was quite relevant was people asking about everything is on chain, but no gas fees for the fireworks game.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Yes, I can.
Okay. I'm so glad to be here. I've been following Somnia for quite a long time now, and I think this is one of the blockchain I've come in contact, studied, and I swear I love what you guys are building, and I've been doing everything possible to be an active participant, and I really want to be into Somnia with everything they are building. And hopefully I'm always doing my best to support in everywhere I can. So what I want to ask is I've been trying to ask it on my timeline, but I hardly get some response on it. One is in the testnet phase, I normally get some errors whenever I'm doing some things. But I figured out maybe, yeah, I know it's testnet obviously, so that's why we are testing, to get to figure out some stuffs about the blockchain and all. So I was thinking maybe there should be some feedback, so that whenever you have any issues, then you can at least put it on the feedback. That's why we are testing, so that at least the team can look into it. That is one. Then the second question is I was meaning to ask about getting the Somnia OG role or anything. I think maybe we that are contributing to Somnia on X, trying to create some content, trying to create some memes and everything. I think is there must it be through the Discord that you're going to get the OG role? Is there any consideration for us that focus majorly on creating content on X, or just that the only people that are chatting on the Discord or provided doing stuffs on the Discord that meant for that space? So I was really trying to know if we can get considered, we that are creating different contents on X and contributing to our community in the Somnia network. Thank you.
Yep. So I can answer both these questions. So in terms of if you're having, are you part of the Discord community?
Yeah. I'm fully active on the Discord.
So if you get any errors or anything, I'd go to, there's a place called Dev Chat. You can kind of raise issues and errors there. You can also talk to one of the mods, and they'll kind of put your feedback into the feedback system, and then the engineers will kind of process that and kind of fix it for you. You can also just shout at me in Twitter. I'm pretty much customer support over Twitter. So if you reply in my comments with stuff, I will often reply back and kind of get that to engineering and get that stuff fixed up. So there's a lot of different ways you can, but I'd probably go to Discord first. It would be the place you get easiest access to people. In terms of the OG role, we do give it to people on Discord, but we do also give it to people on Twitter. I think we'll talk to our community manager to kind of communicate this a bit clearer, what we kind of want to see from people to get the OG role. But when we first started the project, it was all about being in Discord. But now, as we started to grow on Twitter, we are being very cognizant of making sure we're rewarding people for creating great quality content. We're also going to be doing some stuff with the Yappa leaderboard. So if you guys are interested in that, there'll be some kind of schemes there where we're kind of giving people rewards and incentives to kind of get high up on that board. So yeah, we're definitely looking at kind of how we use X and Twitter to reward people with things like OG status and other things as well. So keep doing that. I'll make sure I talk to the community manager and kind of put out some clarity on how we're looking to do that.
All right, thank you. That would be great.
Awesome. All right, next question, John.
Yeah, so somebody was asking a question in the chat about, I guess, how it works with the gas fees on the fireworks game, since it's on chain, but we have thousands of people on here who aren't paying any gas fees for that interaction.
Yeah, of course.
Monty, do you want to take that?
Yeah. So it's a really interesting problem that we have to. I think each sort of developer is going to have to see what works for them. But I think one of the things we've looked at is we want to make sure that we can have systems that do things like gas refunds and accounting for making sure that you might need some gas to be able to sort of initiate some transactions and stuff as an end user. But we want to try to make sure that you can play a game without thinking that all of your money will vanish, or that there's who knows the kind of gas fees that might be required for that. So I think it makes a lot more sense for us to enable developers to do what Web 2 games operate as, where they can add like a pool of money, very similar to like an API usage, and say, okay, here's like 100 SOM, and the players of my game can do things within that amount, for example. And it's it's an active place that we're looking at to sort of understand what works, what's best for the different kinds of users, because I think Web 3 and Web 2 might have different expectations as to the kinds of things that people want to be able to spend money on. But a great example is if you're talking about guest embedded wallets, so that people can just jump into the game and play, you need to be able to have really good infrastructure and systems to enable them to play without having depositing money in, because that's a huge blocker. Maybe you want to limit them to a certain amount of time they're playing, stuff like that. So we're really looking at enabling that while keeping it to still be very secure, and obviously not draining wallets, not draining sort of accounts. So it's a really interesting place. It's a really good question about how do you do this, because it's a big limitation if you sort of stick to just you have to be the one sending transactions. But yeah, there's a lot we can do there.
Yeah, I think there's also a vision piece here for us at Somnia and kind of the general ecosystem, that we are big believers that the future of Web3, the protocols and businesses building products and apps on top, will end up sponsoring the gas for the end consumer to utilize the apps. The reason for this is if you think about a mass consumer application that wants to appeal to hundreds of millions of people, think about your grandma. Your grandma is not going to go to Binance and buy a token, put it in a wallet, and start paying for gas. Maybe she is. Maybe she's really technically savvy. But in general, most people aren't going to do that. And so we are big believers in kind of gas sponsorship mechanisms that basically put the onus on the business or the protocol operator to pay on behalf of the users for those small micro stuff. But there's also going to be models like Monty's talking about where users can contribute to that or pay portions of that as well. I think you already see this a lot in Web3 gaming. If you play a lot of the kind of Unreal PC console games, you're interacting on chain, but you don't know it. It just is doing that behind the scenes for you. I think that's going to be the future of the industry.
What's interesting, Paul, is that there's a lot of existing technology out there to kind of have either things like custodial wallets or have things which sponsor gas. But a lot of the times as well, they use these batching mechanisms to combine all the transactions into one bigger transaction for reasons. But the moment you're doing something as real time as what we're talking about here, like smashing fireworks onto the blockchain, if this was all being batched up, when you tap the firework button, it might be a couple of seconds before you see the firework appear, and then the whole kind of application makes no sense anymore. So we've had to solve the issues of like getting rid of gas fees for users as part of the UX, but also having it so it's like super real time. So that was quite a challenge.
Very good stuff. Very good to know. So I think that brings us to the end of our time. Sorry to Poku INJ. send us a message on X, and we will answer your question privately. And everybody else, thanks for joining us, and thanks for joining our experiment today. And we will catch you on the next one.
All right. Thanks very much. Thanks,
Yeah,
everybody.
thanks so
Thanks,
much.
folks.
It's been great.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.